Hey guys, what is going on? I hope you all are doing well today. My name is Elliot. Welcome back to The Fragrance Well. Today's topic of discussion, we are going to be talking about fragrances that in my collection were upgrades to a fragrance I previously owned. They weren't replacements, so to speak. The fragrances I'm going to be talking about that got upgraded, they're still fragrances I want in my collection. They still hold a place, but I think the fragrance that upgraded it is something I would probably reach for more regularly than the previous iteration, only because either I think it's better, a better composition, or just better done in some kind of way, or it does more for me when I wear it. Got 10 fragrances total. 5 of them are the fragrances that got upgraded, and the other 5 are the fragrances that upgraded the previous. We're gonna talk about them right now. All right, guys, welcome back. So let's go ahead and get it started. So this is going to be Tom Ford Oud Wood. Tom Ford Oud Wood is the fragrance that got upgraded. I will talk about what is going to upgrade it in my collection in a second. But you know, this fragrance here, I actually got this before I started collecting. This is the first fragrance I purchased that I would consider a higher quality, a higher class of fragrance from everything I owned previously. You know, it's spicy, it's woody, it's got a little bit of an amber-like sweetness to it, features oud in a way that is wearable, if you will. Has beautiful cardamom in the top, has a little bit of creaminess from sandalwood. You know, it's probably the most popular fragrance from the house of Tom Ford, particularly in the private blend line. This fragrance is always going to be in my collection because of what it means to me during my fragrance journey, even before I started collecting. So what fragrance upgraded Oud Wood? Well, it's going to be this one from the house of Havane, Carved Oud. Havane London's Carved Oud. Try to get it where you guys can see it. So this fragrance is definitely very similar to Oud Wood. It's very much the same style of fragrance, although this one is far more complex. The ingredients are much higher quality, and the longer I have this, I'm starting to notice that there's actually a lot more differences than there are similarities. It's just the same style of fragrance. Also features notes like cardamom, has oud in it, although the oud in this is probably a real oud, or at least a better quality oud. Also has that sandalwood and kind of ambery warm dry down. There's just a lot more complexity to this fragrance compared to Oud Wood. This is also an extrait de parfum, so it wears differently. Obviously it lasts a lot longer. The oil concentration is much higher. There's also a heavy dose of patchouli in this that is not in Tom Ford's Oud Wood, definitely setting this one apart in a pretty clear way. Oud Wood is a great fragrance. I always wanted in my collection, but if I ever want that scent profile, I'm probably gonna reach for this more. Therefore, this is the upgraded fragrance to Oud Wood. Carved Oud by Havane London. All right, guys, so we're moving on. The next fragrance that got upgraded is going to be from the house of Dior. This is Sauvage. And I have the eau de parfum concentration. In particular, I would just say any of the original Dior Sauvage, eau de toilette, eau de parfum, or parfum concentrations would be the one that I'm going to upgrade. Ambroxan, freshness, metallic, kind of brightness to it. Vanilla, lavender, nutmeg. I'd be surprised if you've been collecting or into fragrance for any amount of time and haven't at least gotten your nose on one of these yet. It's a spicy, somewhat sweet, kind of shower gel-like fragrance. I mean, it works for what it is. You know, I don't dislike this fragrance. It gets talked about a lot. It's the highest selling fragrance for the last few years. People claim everybody's wearing it. Everybody's not wearing it. You know, it's just one that you might be more likely to smell than some others, but that doesn't mean everyone's wearing it. I'm gonna keep it in my collection because I think this is just a staple fragrance in the history of fragrance sales. I think you have to give your nod to fragrances that have, you know, achieved momentous things in terms of business, the business side of things, like Acqua di Gio, like Dior Sauvage. This one I still will pull out from time to time, but this next one I would definitely pull out way more than this. When I was putting this list together, I tried to stay away from flankers. However, I think this is a special case because this flanker is so different from the original iterations that it's almost its own fragrance. So we're gonna go with Sauvage Elixir. Dior Sauvage Elixir, when I got my nose on this, I was absolutely blown away, and I did think to myself like, wow, that's a big departure from what the original Dior Sauvages are doing. So you still have that spicy nature, but it's way less metallic. This is way more spice forward. You still have some freshness. You got lavender still in this. Still got that ambroxan. There's also a heavy dose of licorice in this, some woods. It's the much more mature version of Sauvage and it's completely different from what the original Sauvage formulations do. People like to call this grown-up Sauvage. It is kind of an ode to the old school style of fragrances, and I agree. But for me, it's just a type of scent profile that I enjoy much more than what the original Sauvage does. So if I ever want to wear a Sauvage fragrance other than, you know, like the older old school Sauvages, I'm gonna go with this one. So this one actually upgraded the Sauvage line for me. All right, guys, so the next one's going to be coming from the house of Thierry Mugler. This is Pure Havane. Thierry Mugler's Pure Havane. I mean, you know, this is probably one of the best designer fragrances to ever come out, especially tobacco forward fragrances. Yeah, I'll spray it in there. You know, it's like the worst atomizer ever. Yeah, it's all over me now, crap. But man, just smells so good. Great sweet honey tobacco, little touch of smokiness to it, but not overly smoky. Just a beautiful composition from this house. Real shame that Mugler really discontinued basically this entire line outside of the original Amen. Will we ever see anything else from them in terms of men's fragrances? I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but my hopes are not high for that. Now that fragrance is always going to be in my collection because that is undoubtedly a classic and a great one to have and also very hard to get. But there's still a fragrance that I think upgraded it and I would be more willing to wear. So what is it? Well, you probably already know. It's Xerjoff's Naxos. Xerjoff's Naxos, very much done in the exact same style of that fragrance, but at the end of the day, this is just far higher quality. Still has that kind of honey tobacco kind of vibe. This one also has some citruses and some lavender on the top to give it a little bit of a freshness to it. The spices in here come across a little bit more natural. The honeyed sweetness, if you will, is also a lot smoother in my opinion. By all accounts, it's just a higher quality version of a Pure Havane style fragrance. I don't consider it a clone. It's kind of hard to say it's a clone when it's not really trying to do exactly what Pure Havane does. It's the same style of fragrance, yes. Probably inspired by, honestly, we'll never actually know that. But with all that being said, whether it was inspired by Pure Havane or not, it's a higher quality fragrance. I think it does it better. One might argue I would wear this more simply because Pure Havane is discontinued and very hard to get. If I liked Pure Havane better, I would wear it better because I have enough fragrances to wear. Even if I wore that at the same amount of same rate that I wore Naxos, I still wouldn't go through the entire bottle anytime soon. So it's gonna stay in my collection, but if I want this style of fragrance, I'm gonna go with Naxos more often. All right, guys, moving on. So we're gonna move on to Dior Fahrenheit next. This is the original Fahrenheit Eau de Toilette. This fragrance right here is a classic for sure, and frankly, is important to me because this is a fragrance my dad wore a lot back when I was a lot younger, so I have memories of him wearing this scent. Great fragrance profile, has that kind of petrol vibe, a very violetly forward fragrance, has a lot of spices, has a very interesting note of chamomile that I didn't realize that's what I was smelling in the opening until I actually had some chamomile tea around the time I was playing around with this one. And I was like, oh, I actually pick up the chamomile and I like the way chamomile smells. So I always kind of have to point that out now because it stands out to me. Also has some very strong leather accords. It's a classic masculine men's fragrance and also one that has a sentimental value to me. So I'm definitely going to always have this in my collection. But unfortunately, it's not the fragrance it was back when it first came out. It's been watered down quite a bit. It does not have that punch that it used to have. So naturally, if there's a fragrance that I think I can get a similar vibe with and frankly get more potency, if you will, I'm gonna go with it. So that fragrance is gonna be this next one. From the house of Oud Wood, we have Portrayal Man. Oud Wood Portrayal Man. Now I will say this much, this fragrance here is definitely very violetly forward and has some pretty deep leather accords. Now the leather is neutral, it's not animalic or too bright or anything like that. It's just a good strong leather note. Also has some juniper in this to give it a little bit of greenness. There's definitely kind of a woody, ambery sweetness to it. You're also gonna get a good dose of cade oil in this, so you get that kind of deep, dark, leathery, oily kind of vibe. This fragrance is not for everyone. Then again, neither is Fahrenheit. If you like a Fahrenheit, you might like this. This is a recent pickup for me, and to be honest, the only thing really tying this in with Fahrenheit is that violet leaf and the leathery nature of it, but this is its own fragrance. It's definitely not trying to do what Fahrenheit is doing. Fahrenheit features a lot more spicy accords, even a little bit of booziness, a lot more freshness, where this one is primarily focusing on the the deep nature of that violet leaf, as well as the heavy dark leather accords. That's also why I kind of like it, because it gives me that violet leaf in a much richer, much fuller, more potent dosage, if you will. So mainly because I can't get Fahrenheit in the way that it used to be, I'm gonna go with this instead because it'll give me that full violet leaf leathery nature if I want it. Almach Portrayal, man, is going to be the upgrade for Fahrenheit in my collection. Alright guys, and the last fragrance to be upgraded is going to be coming from the house of Guerlain. This is Vetiver. Guerlain Vetiver, that classic sharp citrus, fresh, clean vetiver scent for the gentleman. This is a gentleman's vetiver fragrance. Now my wife's not going to be too happy that I put this on the to be upgraded list because she loves this fragrance and she literally calls it clean shirt. I have to agree with her. It definitely gives off a clean shirt vibe. I really like this one because it also has nutmeg in it. I'm a big fan of nutmeg and fragrances. Also has kind of a leafy tobacco accord to go with that vetiver and the dry down. Very great, fresh and clean vetiver, gentlemanly scent. But what is it being upgraded by? It's gonna be upgraded by none other than Naxos Sultan Vetiver. Naxos Sultan Vetiver. I mean, if Guerlain Vetiver is the vetiver scent of a gentleman, this is the vetiver scent of kings, in my opinion. Royalty-like florals, every type of vetiver you can think of. A great absinthe in the opening to give it a lot of briskness to it. Good dose of bergamot, so you still keep that citrusy kind of vibe. There's also some spices to support it as well. Good hit of neroli in this, a little bit of tonka bean to give it some sweetness, some nice woods in the dry down. I mean, it's just a beautiful, beautiful composition of vetiver. It is what it is. This fragrance is just a higher quality, a much more robust, much more complex version of a vetiver fragrance. And because I am a vetiver lover, I'm always gonna wanna pick that over a fragrance that's a little bit simpler. That being said, I still love Guerlain Vetiver. That's always going to be an option in my vetiver arsenal, but if I really wanna feature vetiver in a strong way, I'm gonna go with Sultan Vetiver. Okay guys, that's gonna do it for this video. That was 5 fragrances that got upgraded by 5 other fragrances that I got later in my collection. Get busy down in the chat below, man. Let me know what is a fragrance you got that upgraded a fragrance you previously really enjoyed. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Remember to be well and smell well, and I will see you in the next episode of The Fragrance Wheel. Have a great day.